It's a great honor to welcome Canadian folk music extraordinaire, Dayna Manning. How are you today, Dayna? And thank you very
Thank you.
much for
I,
being on this show.
I'm great and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
Mhm. I should like to begin by asking you, well, we can begin at the beginning. What was your musical background like?
I was raised by musical parents. My dad was a trumpet player,
Mhm.
and my mother played clarinet they met in high school band. And my dad went on to be a music teacher and played trumpet semi-professionally. And then my mom was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. She had lots of different jobs throughout our life. But yeah, the one thing that stayed consistent is every Wednesday they either had a rehearsal or performance with their concert band. And so
Huh?
I was always raised with music being really important.
Mhm. So you were born in Stratford, Ontario, where I'm guessing you're living right now. Um, how I know of Stratford, that is where Shakespeare festivals are held, and I'm a great fan of Shakespeare. So, did you grow up with that, as a feature of your life?
I did, and that was actually a huge influence on me. I remember seeing musicals and plays throughout my whole life. I would at least see one thing a year. And not only do they do Shakespeare, but they do lots of musicals such as West Side Story or A Chorus Line or Billy, uh, you know, just tons and tons and tons of musicals. And it's always a live orchestra.
Mhm.
So seeing the dancers and the singers and the orchestra playing just let my musical imagination run wild. And I I can't tell you how thankful I am to be raised in Stratford, to have that influence around me constantly. And it was a real privilege to be raised there.
Mhm. Yeah, I went to school for 4 years in Peterborough, Ontario, and you know, it was a great regret of mine not to have visited Stratford at least once, and knowing from Hannah and also from yourself, the cultural and music scene there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what was the music that you listened to growing up besides, I guess, the music that your parents performed and rehearsed?
Um, for me, I really loved songwriters and I loved I really loved Tom Petty when I was young. A lot of my friends, I grew up in the 90s, and a lot of my friends were listening to Nirvana and a lot of alternative rock, but I liked the songwriters. So I loved Tom Petty and Sheryl Crow and Joni Mitchell and Sarah McLachlan. And I was really trying to figure out how to write songs myself. So
Mhm.
um, that Tom Petty record, Wildflowers, which came out in 1994, was really where I put it all together. It was such a beautiful record. Each song had a different feel to it. And I really used it to model my own first album. And I wrote that uh, when I was 16 and 17 years old, and I was able to put that out with EMI Music Canada and Network Records in the States. And I was even nominated for a Juno for that album, which is like a Grammy in Canada. It was pretty interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so for me, I always loved the behind the scenes stuff of the music business, like putting the records together and producing them and the engineering of getting the right sounds for what you want to portray. I really find the connection of playing live, which I absolutely love, to getting a recording for someone. There's such a process in between to make it right. And
Mhm.
that fascinated me. It felt like an experiment every time. And every time I made a record, I learned how to do something better, which was always really fun.
Mhm. Yeah. I wonder if listened to that first album, years after it was completed and published. How did you
Mhm.
feel about that in
Oh,
retrospect?
it's it's interesting because it's actually not on Spotify. This my first album.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't
called
find it
Volume
there.
One. Yeah, it's on my website, danamanning.com, to listen to. I I actually am quite proud of it. I like how it sounds. Number one, I thought the engineer was really, really great.
Mhm,
I loved the different dichotomy of the folk music and rock music that I was into at the time. And
mhm,
I thought it was a neat experimental record, but I did think people had a hard time putting me in a genre or a category.
mhm,
Um, and so that was a little bit strange. The first single I released was a very, very folk song, and the second was a very, very pop song called My Addiction. And they attracted different fans, and I don't know, it was just very interesting. So I still am proud of that record. I actually like that record more than some other ones I've made. um, but yeah, I guess I could just say I'm not mad at it. I'm okay with it. The one thing that I would say as you get older, you just stop. It was a way that I really sorted out my emotional feelings and my relationships and things like that. And I don't really do that anymore with music. I'm more write about interesting stories or legends or communities or um small scenarios. I don't write about relationships as much anymore.
mhm. I'm guessing that was how the singer-songwriter music first appealed to you. It's the personal aspect of it, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
definitely. Um, I think for me, I have a little bit of social anxiety, even though I'm a performer. Performing is very easy for me because I'm alone on a stage and everyone's a bit
mhm,
separated from me, but I get more nervous coming off the stage and having to talk to folks after.
mhm.
And I feel like I really used music as a tool to communicate my feelings when I didn't feel like I could in a conversation. Mhm.
I see. When was your first time listening to Joni Mitchell?
Oh, actually, it was during uh the the recording of my first record because uh my producer Ray Coburn, he told me to do a blues note in a song called Half the Man.
Mhm,
And I didn't know what he was really talking. He's like, like Joni Mitchell, like ooh, that kind of come up and resolve. And I did a harmony, three parts harmonies that comes up and does and resolves there at the kind of near the end of that song. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And he's just like, "What? You don't know?" And so he gave me the album Court and Spark, which is still my favorite
yeah,
Joni Mitchell album. Which actually I just recently covered Free Man in Paris on my
I
latest
listened
album.
to it. It
Yeah.
was great. I really wanted to, return to Joni Mitchell because I haven't listened to her for a long time. It was, I think it was during when I was 14 or 15 that I discovered the album Blue, which I adored.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I really loved your cover of Three Men in Paris. I haven't listened to the original, but I think I will soon enough. Um, so tell us
Oh,
about,
if you like Blue, you'll like Cortland Park. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I
If you
will.
like Blue, you'll like that one too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, tell us about the process of, I guess, learning to play music. What instruments do you play?
Oh, for me, I started on Suzuki piano, and Suzuki is a very ear training based um, program. So a lot of my friends learned something called the Royal Conservatory, where you kind of did studies and you very focused on learning to read. Mine was focused on listening to a tape of the book you were working on, someone playing it as you went to bed at night. And so my parents would turn on the side of the tape that I was working on and I would fall asleep. And then when you started reading the music, you would memorize it very quickly. And so uh, it built this ability in me that by the time I was 15 or 16, I would just be walking downtown Stratford and I would write an entire song in my head and I pretty much knew what chords I needed to play on the guitar.
Mhm.
So that was my first experience. So playing piano was first and then I started singing. I went to a Presbyterian church in Stratford and I'm not religious, but my parents were new to Stratford, and I think it was a good spot for community for them. And we sang in the choir. I was in the junior choir, and the choir director, Earl Clark, decided that I could sing. So he would keep me after choir and give me the solo, and then I would just sing the solo in church. And so I just thought singing in front of people was something that was normal. They kind of tricked me into that. And then when I was 13, my dad at high school was losing band classes. Like there was a little bit of less interest at the time in playing trumpets and saxophones and flutes. So he learned to play guitar when he was 43 and I was 13. And we went to guitar lessons together sometimes. And then I just excelled. I was a kid, so I just learned everything faster than him. But he did get a guitar program started at the high school just in time for me to go to high school, really. And so I even took guitar from my dad in high school.
Wow.
And then going down as I produced records and made demos and things like that, I even took a couple of years of drum lessons, and I've played bass on albums. Like there's a song called What's So Great About Her on Folkio, and that's me playing the bass. Yeah, uh I'm not a musical genius, really. Like I don't really even know what key I'm playing in sometimes. I can just do it. I don't know how to explain it. Um, the people that I've been working with more recently on my album Morning Light are Stratford festival players, and they're kind of the geniuses of music. And it's been really awesome to play with them and have my talent meld with their talent, you know? Very different.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm still struggling to play the piano at the moment. I think another one of my regrets is that I didn't learn it when I was young, and I have more time in my life, but I don't think it's ever too late. Uh, so
No, not at all.
mhm. Yeah. So do you remember the first concert that you played in public where you performed your original songs? What was
I
that like?
do. I I wrote this song called "The Walk on the Moon."
Hmm.
I th I think I was 15 or 16. And I think I was 16. I can't really remember. Maybe 15. I wrote a book called Many Moons, and it's right in there, whatever I said in there. The uh the first time I ever played that song in front of people was at a place called Hyacinth House. It was a little restaurant that would have an open stage on Sunday afternoons. And I sang it and played it, and people loved it. Like I couldn't believe the reaction that I had from people. I really didn't think that they would react to what I made like that. And I think it was entirely people's reactions that kept me going and made me not fearful to play it again, you know. Um, so community support and was really, really high. I don't think, in 1995 or six, when I was doing this, I was the only girl that played guitar. I didn't have guitar playing girlfriends that I sat around and jammed with. I mean, um, Hannah Thomas, she kind of went through. I have a business called the Folk Army, where I teach young girls to play guitar and sing and write songs and do all these things. And they're literally like a group of girls that all hang out and play guitars together. I never ever had that. It was very lonesome. And sometimes the boys would let me hang out with them and play guitar, but not very often, you know. Um, so that it took a lot of courage for me to get started. But once I realized people really liked doing what I did, I it drove me to do it a lot more.
Yeah, I love to talk about Hannah Thomas and was it folk art, the program that you set up
Yeah,
to
I call it folk army. Yeah.
folk army. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes. Funny.
Mhm. Yeah, I love to talk about that in a bit, but I'd like to ask, whenever you, I guess, premiere a new song to an audience, whether you are still, building your audience or you've established an audience, uh, it's how does it feel? How does it feel to say to, an audience, hey, this is a completely new song. You have not heard it before, and I have not performed it before in a crowd, and now I'm going to do it, and we're
Oh,
all going to share in this experience together. How does that feel like?
well, that's a very exciting thing. And as I've gone through my career, I've realized that you should save those moments for the right moments. So, a few songs that I've had about specific topics.
Hmm.
One was called King of the Background. It's about a piano player from the band named Richard Manuel, who was also from Stratford, and he passed away in the 80s. And I wanted to save that to play in a space that was momentous for him, that was meaningful for him. And another one called From Canada, which I wrote. I haven't had a band called Trent Severin for a while. That was really like a pet project for me. I produced the albums and really loved writing songs for them. Um, I wrote that song with a man named Bill Lishman, who taught uh, Canadian geese to fly south, following him in his ultralight aircraft. And it was just incredible. And I got to debut that song at his house on Earth Day.
Hmm.
And so that was very meaningful. So um, as I went on in life, I realized that it's a really special time to debut a song. The other thing that I've learned is that the song's not really done until you've played it a few times in front of an audience. You can really feel the energy and where songwriting is problem solving. You get an idea and you have to problem solve it to be a complete thing. It's literally like solving a Rubik's Cube. It's like, oh, the side of red. How can I get the other side green to balance it out, like the next verse or whatever? It's just to me, it's very mathematical, and
Hmm.
you'll feel the crowd kind of bobbing along with you. And if it doesn't quite feel right, you might change something um, after performing for the first time. So I always recommend to perform the songs before you record them for your albums.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, as an
Mhm.
aside, I think I know that story about the man with the ultralight aircraft and the Canadian geese. I think it was made into a film, right? Fly Away Home.
Yeah.
Name of that movie.
Yeah.
Jeff Daniels and Anna Paquin. Yeah. What was?
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched it a long time ago with also a friend from Canada who introduced it to me. I really like it. But
Yeah, that story,
yeah.
the story is from the Peterborough area,
Mhm.
actually. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my
Mhm.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I really should see that one again. Yeah,
Yeah.
I read in Wikipedia that you and your band, Trent Severn, Trent is incidentally the name of the university that I went to.
Yep.
You guys
Yep.
perform a concert in front of the great Canadian hero, Colonel Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
how's that and what was the technology behind that? How was that set up?
Oh, so we interviewed him and performed him at one of our live shows while he was on the space station. It
Mm,
was incredible. There's actually, uh if you Google Trent Severin and Chris Hadfield, you'll find the interview and the performance to him on YouTube. There's someone's got a video of it up. But basically we had a DI box that had RCAs in, and then a headphone jack from the phones, because he just called the phone, right? I guess it was a Texas number that called. So I guess he calls down to NASA, or NASA connects him or whatever.
mhm,
And he called the cell phone, and then we had the cell phone hooked in to go over the PA system. And yeah, that's we how we talked to him, and it was really a thrilling experience. I don't even remember that show because I was so nervous. The other girls in the band wanted me to do the talking with Chris. Um, and I was so nervous about what I was going to talk to him about and what I was going to say, that I don't even remember playing. But it was it was just such a cool experience, and I swear the audience there would never forget it. Even when Chris came back from the space station, I just felt like he could never really get a feel for how connected we all felt to him while he was up there. He was posting all those photos of our towns and, really showed us the world in a way we had never seen before. And everyone was riveted. We further to that, on Canada Day that year, it was 2013, he invited that band Trent Severin to back him up on playing Space Oddity on Parliament Hill in
Oh,
Canada.
wow.
And that was an incredible experience. So to play with him, I played banjo. Yeah, it was really neat. And for me, that's what my music career has really been about. I didn't love well, when I was young, actually, I just didn't understand the music business. And I didn't understand the relationship to make, or I kind of had a manager that really made me not trust anyone else but him. And so when I was with my label and things, like I was kind of like not very open to them and
Yeah.
not very receptive to
Mhm.
things. And so I think it kind of really hurt me. But as my career went on, I just realized that it was really experience based, that I couldn't have ever imagined the experiences that I would have had if music hadn't opened the doors. Like just like that, like talking to Chris on the space station and playing with him and um all of those things. Like you can't you can't even fathom that happening to you. But these musical things we do open the doors.
Yeah, most of the stories I've heard in regards to, say, artists and the business side of music has always been one of conflict and adversary. The
Hmm.
most famous one being Taylor Swift, and there are others
Hmm.
too, say Prince. Um, and I think that stems from the differing interests. Artists wants to make music,
Yes.
and the label wish to handle the business side of music, the money making side of music, and
Hmm.
therefore the two are not compatible. But for the most part, I think they kind of need each other. So yeah, how do you manage that relationship, which I presume would takes up a lot of time and effort within your music career and what.
Yeah, you're right. Wow, how eloquently stated. I've never heard it said better.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've checked out of the music business. I've really become just the artist. And for me, I've taken graphic design courses at online from universities and to make my own posters and to do my own artwork. And I've learned how to record my own records and I've really honestly spent a ton of time learning other skills that would enable me to just be an artist. At this point in time, though, it's kind of really backfired on me because I no longer can sell my product.
Mhm.
So the streaming stations are all set up so these huge labels can just over and over sell the same thing. They're going to sell the Beatles catalog to everyone who's on Earth a million times over, a
Mhm.
billion times over, and they don't have to do anything. They're not making anything new. It just exists. They have rights to it and they're going to sell it.
Mhm.
So one thing that I was thinking about recently was the movie Top Gun, and
Yeah.
uh, the sequel. Actually, I think there's only one or two original songs in that sequel. I
Mhm.
think Lady Gaga sings one at the end, but otherwise it's all just
Kenny
selling
Loggins,
that.
all that.
Yeah, yeah. It's selling the same music to a new generation, right?
Yeah.
And because of this, we're not going to see as many artists like me. I am talented. I'm a great writer. I can make good recordings, but there's no interest for a label to support an artist like me that can only reach a certain amount of people. And I just see a real regurgitation. I see that the younger people that I meet are all listening to the same things I listened to in high school. But when in the 90s, you would never have listen to the music from the 70s and the 80s, and you'd never listen to the music from the 80s and the 90s. It moved with this cultural shift and a social shift, but we just don't have that anymore. It's because it's honestly just been destroyed. And as soon as the streaming came in, that cut out half of my income because I sell CDs at my shows, but no one can play them anymore. No one can put them in their computer. No one can, so I don't have a product to sell. And I can't even find a website where I can sell MP3s to your phone. Like I don't even think there's an MP3 player you can download. Um, so it's been very, very tough that way. And one of my responses to that was to write my book. So I have a book called Many Moons. Each chapter is called one of my songs, and it's either why I wrote that song, a crazy experience that happened to me because I wrote the song, or something to do with the label, kind of advice. So I did 12 of my songs over my career and then put them in order, and it ended up being kind of a memoir told through song. And that's my number one selling merchandise item when I play a show at this point. Because people used to buy my CD, but because of my storytelling elements in my show, they buy the book now. And
Oh,
that has been really, really helpful.
yeah,
But
congratulations.
not being able to sell my product has been very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. One thing that I've noticed, and I think this has been, researched before, is that Spotify, they count the number of streams, and
Mhm.
they've shown that new songs do not gain as much streams or listens as old songs. Like people are listening
Mhm.
to older songs than newer songs.
Yeah.
I guess, as a musician, what would you attribute that to?
Um, uh, I would attribute it to, well, my stepdaughter listens to what we listen to, right?
Yeah,
So those are the songs of her childhood.
yeah,
So she loves the song, Turn Around Every Now and Then I Get a Little, like she knows every word to that.
hmm,
I can't remember what it's called, but uh, these are these are old songs. So not only is she listening to them, but we're listening to them, and we're not showing them a new uh artist to listen to, right? And the new artists that they are listening to, I even think that it's changed so much over the past 10 years that they're listening to new artists that were actually established 10 to 15 years ago, like Taylor Swift, even Harry Styles. Like unless they have like a machine behind them that was on television, like I think Harry Styles might have been on America's Got Talent or something. I don't know, one of those shows.
hmm,
There's not really a way for just a simple songwriter to get their music out. Like I honestly have no idea how to market my music to new listeners. It's a very, very tough thing. And I'm very lucky that I have an established small fan base that
hmm,
wants to support me and listen to my music. But I think someone starting out right now, it's very hard, very, very, very,
yeah,
very, very hard to get your music out there without
hmm,
um tele national television or, but yeah, I attribute that to generational passage of passing on of music. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I think a concern that has not been raised too much these days is that this is my observation as a regular music listener and not, deep in the music business at all. Is that I think newer music has become less, I guess, family friendly. And I know that
Oh.
that makes me sound like I'm 50 years older than I actually am, but it does seem that I know that, the music that you make is something that everyone can listen to, is something that you can put on, in a road trip that parents
Or
and
a dinner
children.
table. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mhm.
But
Yeah.
these days, it's not just limited to, say, hip hop music, but top 40 pop too. I think the subjects that are addressed in that in the songs, as well as certain music videos that feature like excessive amount of sex appeal, the
Mhm.
topics are very much R-rated. It's the music is designed for a particular age group, say 18 to 25, and just that only because apparently maybe because of streaming sites, only 18 to 25-year-olds go on Spotify, with
Mhm.
utmost frequency. So I guess that may be the problem. So, if
That's a good observation. Wow. You really put some thought into that.
thank you.
Um, yeah, I also think that it actually attracts even a younger generation because of the taboo-ness
Right.
of not right. And I remember EMI, like I remember them discussing that their target market is a 12-year-old
Hmm.
that that and the 12-year-old wanting to like be an adult and that kind of interest in more adult things. Um, yeah. Hmm. That's a good observation. But do I think that I don't know how this newer music gets passed on to the next generation. I don't really know. I mean I took like my family just went to see Brian Adams and we
Hmm.
all knew the words to Heaven and everything I do, I'll do it for you. And I mean, when I was young, I would have never listened to Brian Adams, but I'm going to tell you right now, he was unbelievable. The show was unbelievable. The songwriting was amazing. Like, I don't know why I didn't really listen to him, but actually I even wrote a song about him. But the yeah, I don't quite understand how it all works. And I think it's because I've I started my first record came out on tape and CD, and then I saw it all change, and then I was able to like sell a download card at my show that you could buy my album online and download it if that's what you wanted, or you could buy the CD. I've just seen it all go through this
Yeah.
uh constant change. And so it's made me a little bit fearful of investing in music, like even just ordering the CDs for my album. Like, do I want to own these CDs and sell them at my shows? And maybe I'm only going to be able to sell a couple thousand of them, and but I've got 10,000 in my garage or what, like it makes it hard to invest in things, and it makes it hard to yeah, to market myself. The hard thing for me for this last album, I had some support from the Canadian government. We have some arts grants that we have access to.
Mhm.
And part of that art grant is a video grant and a touring grant. But because we couldn't tour due to COVID, they gave us more video money. And I made 4 videos in the past two
Oh.
years that I'm really proud of and really, I think I made 3 videos in my prior career to this. So it's like kind of the most I've ever put out there. But I don't even know how to show someone my video or because I'm older and I don't understand the technology as much as younger folks. Or
Mhm.
do I have the time to dedicate keeping up with the technology? So I just find the very new stuff is very pop culture driven for the marketing. I think you're right with that 18 to 25. Also, I don't think albums are consumed the same way. It's important for me to write a full album that someone can enjoy, to sit down for an hour and enjoy. But when I have a free time now, I'm probably on my phone reading the news or looking up something that I need to learn about, or I'm not spending that downtime that I did in the 90s before the internet listening to an album. I'm not spending that time there.
I see. Yeah. So these 4 music videos that you made, I'm guessing they were made during COVID times. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you're one of those rare cases of musicians who have kept active during that bleak time that we all experienced and
Mhm.
none of us would like to remember. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so how do you keep your, well, physical obviously, but mental health in check in those times?
Oh, that was a really tough time for me. I at that time I was on my own. I lived in my own house in Stratford that I had purchased, maybe 6 or 7 years before, and I had a pretty full roster of shows and a full roster of folks I was teaching, kids I was teaching, and all of those had to move online. So I moved all my students online. including ones that were in groups that I gave little one-on-one sessions to. And I think I ended up teaching 50 kids a week online, and they're not all teaching the same, learning the same thing. So I'm getting all these different lessons ready. They have to have their pages before, like sent to them before. I've never worked so hard in my life to keep that going. And I burnt myself out really badly. Uh, that summer, I didn't really usually teach in the summer, so I've kind of found some other shows I could do. I actually did a Facebook Live show on July 1st, 2020. It was one of the first, I think it was one of the first real live streamed shows I'd seen, and I was really happy with it. It's on Facebook. I think it's, yeah, Canada Day 2020, Dayna Manning, if you want to look it up.
Mhm.
And that was a real breakthrough for me. So I thought that that was a really neat thing to figure out how to do, and a skill that was going to be helpful to me in the future. So I invested a lot of time in that. And then that fall, I had the opportunity to produce Hannah Thomas's
Yeah.
album, and that was amazing. I didn't go back to teaching that fall. I needed more of a break. Teaching is probably the hardest um, mental thing that I do. And anyway, it was really, really awesome uh, to produce that album with Ben Bolt Martin arranging and John Beetle Bailey engineering. That's who I made my last record with. I made uh that, yeah, that they live close by, so it was pretty easy to do the COVID distancing and keep musicians away from each other. Um and also it was a time, there's a little bit of a lull in COVID at that time, so it was good. And I knew that going into the winter again that we're going to end up hunkered down. I ended up renting out my house and getting a very small bachelor apartment just so I could take the financial pressure off myself and keep my house. I didn't know how long COVID was going to go. And yeah, so I I did that. I'm much happier not maintaining a home. And and then I have this kind of investment property, which is really, really great as an artist to have that. But that winter, I didn't want to leave my students hanging, so I started what did I call them? Like, I don't know. I can't remember what I called it, but I basically set up a program where it was 6 different hour-long classes, and you could join at whatever level you wanted on Zoom. And it was just a sing-along. It was like Folk Army Review, and you could come on and tune up your guitar with me and play along and learn a new song each week. So I did that, which I could manage and do online. It's really, really hard to teach guitar online because number one, you can't even tune the kids' guitar. Like they have to, you can't play together at the same time. There's a delay. It was just very hard. So that worked really, really well. And then I kind of got back to playing some shows again in 2021. But this having this video grant from 2020 to 20, I put 2 videos out earlier this year. It was really, really great for me to be able to focus on that because of the factor grant that I had. And I'm really, really happy with the videos and the way they turned out. They all tie back into something to do with Stratford. There's a song called Oh Snow where Michael Steingard, the video director, filmed every single time we had beautiful snow for the winter of 2021. He would just go outside and film it. And then in 2022, we put that out as soon as kind of the big snowfall came in January. And it was really neat to kind of have some time to put things together in perspective, and I'm proud of those videos. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I should check them out as soon as I get off this interview. But I'd like to hear
Sure.
from I'd like to hear about the folk army, which, as you indicated, Hannah is part of. Yeah.
Yeah. She kind of is. She's a bit more advanced, I'm sure, than my folk army. But
I see.
basically, I was just teaching guitar, but what I noticed was it was only girls signing up. I had a couple of guys. I think I've had two male students over the entire time out of probably 60. And I never ever made it just for girls. Like it wasn't something um that I was just targeting for them. But what I was noticing, it was all kids who came with their families to my show growing up. I remember one of them coming to my show when she was 4 and she's 17 now, or um, having this kind of long community relationship with these kids. And I think for girls, uh, music is therapy. It is, and boys too. But I think being able to sit in your room by yourself and play your guitar really helps girls' mental health in the teenage years. And I just feel like it's a real tool for them. The other thing I noticed with the folk army was, or just giving lessons in general, I didn't name it the folk army until probably year 3, but I noticed really shy kids, super shy, like bawling their eyes out before recital, you know, within 2 or 3 years, they were running for class rep and uh, building that confidence in the girls. So I just really saw how I've never liked how pop music and the marketing of music separates humans from music. It actually separates us. It makes us feel like we're not good enough to play it, or we're not um, uh, talented enough, or anything. Every human can sing. Like as much as people say they can't, I truly think that they can. And we're given that tool for some reason. It's definitely not to become a pop star. And I think it's self-soothing. I read the other day that purring for cats is like not only like shows enjoyment, but it can actually like help them heal their own body and
Wow.
and self-soothe. And I was thinking, I think that's what singing is about. And I don't like how popular music has disconnected us from music as a tool. And so that's what I really wanted to put back in these kids' brains, that this is yours to access, to enjoy, and you don't have to be amazing right off the bat. You're like, as you get better, I mean, if I'm practicing, I only play a song 3 times a day. 3 times a day. And maybe I do 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night if I'm really um practicing something. But your brain actually like builds neurons and muscle memory as you sleep, and you wake up and all of a sudden you can play that better. It's incredible um how us humans work. And anyway, big thing for me was to separate music from a commodity
Oh
and
yeah.
make it just something we all have. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I do lament the, I guess the inorganic turn that music, especially pop music, has been turning these years. There was a time when people get really angry at Dylan because he dared to play
Yes.
electric instruments, but now
Yeah.
almost every popular song has incorporated some electronic instrument in it, and there's that dreadful instrument known as autotune, which has become a crutch for many.
Oh, yeah, we're used to hearing it. Like, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, well, if you listen to my album Morning Light, there's nothing digital on it.
Yeah,
So
I did listen to it. And yeah,
yeah,
I loved it.
thanks.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
That is the I agree with getting back to that kind of organic sound. It's so funny when I remember when someone tried to explain to me that everybody hated Dylan because he used a band or electric with electric guitars and stuff. I was like, what do you mean? What were they mad about? I was just inconceivable to me. I think I was a teenager in my 20s when someone told me about that, and then I finally got it. And I remember I was telling kids, I was like, like there was a time where this was really looked down upon, and um, there's they just can't even fathom it. Mhm.
Yeah, which brings me to, I guess, I'm really glad to see that, you've fostered a love for music and,
Mhm.
to these talented and enthusiastic, hopefully, kids and
Mhm.
mostly girls, I'm guessing. I did notice that in the same category that Hannah Thomas was nominated in Young Performer of the Year this year. I mean, all the nominees and the eventual winner were girls of roughly the same age.
Mm.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But I wonder how do you let's say that they would like to would like to play music more than just a hobby and do it professionally like you do,
Mhm.
and they look at those who are popular right now, and some of them are talented, many are not, but I wouldn't say that all of them are great role models for kids, and
Mhm.
also their music may not be compatible with what you're teaching kids, these
Mhm.
kids. So I wonder how do you balance that, the fact that you're fostering a love for music, but then you should also be a bit cautious of who these kids might look up to.
Oh yeah, I do manage that. I manage that intensely. I
Glad to hear it.
really think about who the artist is that I'm introducing them to. I educate them about them. I uh, sometimes will put a photo of them up or whatever. So that's part's important. I also the older kids work at my camp, so they're there to teach younger kids.
Okay.
I have several students teaching younger kids that I help
Mhm.
support them. Like they don't need me very much. They run I know Lauren Nielsen is really my star student, my star folk army student, who's I think going to go into a community music program at Laurier. And I've really focused them on the community and how music connects people. And so we do a lot of community performances. Um, we uh, support each other. Like I don't really focus it on popular music,
Mhm.
if that makes
That's
any
good.
sense. So Lauren started a music series this summer at the gallery in Stratford, where she hired local musicians every Friday night, and she was paid to um, run this show. So I'm really teaching them that they can't just write songs, that sit at home and write songs and put them on the internet and expect anything to happen. Like they want to create life in music. And I think becoming an educator that makes professional work
Mhm.
is the key. And that's what has worked for me. My kids all look up to the art that I do. They want to learn my songs. They want to learn my finger picking patterns. They come to my shows. They look up to what I'm doing. And then I can assist them with what they're doing. So not only I helped Hannah make her recording, and I really truly believe Hannah's album is going to be a tool for her for life. That Christmas album, it comes around every year. It's so fantastic. It's going to open doors for her every single year. And I really felt like that's what should happen for her. And the next thing I want to do is just kind of start a fund that folks who love the folk army can donate to, and then we can help some of the girls record their first songs and maybe put them out on a folk army label. So to me, it's about being a role model in your community and making art that's professional. You cannot make an income as an artist any longer by just being an artist. And I truly believe that. And to the point where I know very famous artists who, might get 80,000 to 200,000 plays on their top songs um, on Spotify or iTunes in a year. And that equates to like couple $1,000.
Mhm.
Like it's just not gonna fly. So you need to be performing, you need to be enabling performances,
Yeah.
you need to be teaching younger people and working on your art. So you have to work full time if you want to be an artist, but
Mhm.
you've got to have a lot of skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, the economy, especially during COVID, is tough for musicians and performers. But I think a silver lining is that now we definitely know that you cannot get rich by playing music. So
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think I don't think people should go into the music business in order to get rich. And so that may be
Agreed.
maybe a good sign if if you look at it glass half full. Um,
Well, I also think though that
yeah.
I think that the music business has become an oligopoly, which is um the big players, the big labels have designed a system that works for them. And they've literally I'm not able to sell my music a different way. I've tried like, oh, I'll make my own app and you can only listen to my music by subscribing to my app and then I can at least get it on their phone. But you have to be part of those streaming systems to
Mhm.
be relevant on people's um uh minds. I should be able to set my own price for my product. And that's the bottom line. I
Mhm.
shouldn't be told what my product is worth. I should be able to set my own price. And that is where uh we went wrong. And I don't know if it will be ever be fixed, but it really shouldn't be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think going on to this whole inorganic turn that the music industry world is taking. I mean, it is the industrialization of music, not to badmouth industrial music, which I think is there's there's some creative industrial musicians out there,
Yeah.
but you know this is something that I, as well as many people who've listened to music, have noticed that when you look at the credits to a pop song, you see probably 10 to a dozen songwriting names, and often they're the same names. Let's say Max Martin is one of them, and there's a there's a turn towards I guess making it into into a sort of science rather than an art.
A
It-
formula. Yeah.
yeah, a formula. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
and which of course destroys the creative spirit and the spiritual aspect that music brings to our minds and our souls. And of course, I'm glad that you are, taking a stand against that, even though it may not be making
Yeah.
huge
I
impact
mean, I
now.
can't really do anything. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is another thing that I've noticed too, is that I've interviewed I guess, of the nominees and winners of the CFMA this year, the ones that are in the Young Performer of the Year category. And the commonality in all of them, Hannah included, is that they were very much supported by their families. They're all their family are all musical people, as is the case with yours, and they are very much supportive of their music craft. And what I've noticed in at least the music that I've listened to, mm, and is that uh, there's a there's a strong sense of alienation that certain artists profess, and this is why I've never been a fan of Nirvana. That's
Mhm.
and it it seems that they fetishize this sense of alienation, as if their
Hmm.
their success, or at least the inspiration to what they're doing, is that they are outside of conventional society, and
Mhm.
they purport themselves to be the voice of the outsider speaking to us, normies, so to
Mhm.
speak. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there are very talented people in that particular category, but I don't think that that should be a norm, because it very quickly turns into a cliche. I wonder if you
Agreed.
share this observation.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting when I think about the time that Nirvana came out. I wasn't a big fan of Nirvana myself. Well, we were coming out of the 80s, which was maybe the closest to the pop culture now, where it was all about kind of opulence and gold, like chains and big hair and lavish lifestyles.
Yeah.
And music was very much marketed that way. I guess the normies would be like Bryan Adams
Mhm.
and maybe Whitney Houston and stuff that came out of there that wasn't really driven. Like when I think of that, what I'm talking about, I think of like Motley Crue and
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking of them.
Guns N' Roses. Yeah, and so when Nirvana came out and did that, it was a huge statement. Like, we're not going to follow these trends
Right. Right.
and all of that. But you're right about we're special because we're different.
Mhm.
And I think that that is a huge thing in music. And I think it's like I've actually maybe struggled with that is like I am so normal. It's not even funny. And like I there's not really much different or special about me. I'm probably into the same things you are or most people, or I'm probably reading the same things. And um I yeah, I it kind of opened my eyes when you said that. Yeah, it is fetishizing this outside of society
Mhm.
um thing. And yeah, I would say that like folk army and is completely the opposite of that.
Okay.
But at the same time, I do think teenagers are looking for self-identity
Mhm.
and what makes them unique and what makes them different. And so it's easy to market that to them. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that, because of this, I think that we are we are facing this thing called what I call a prolonged adolescence because it is very much normal for someone in their adolescence to indulge in, you know, fantasies and ideas of being outside of society and being alienated and whatnot.
Mm.
Um, but at some point in life and sooner than later, you kind of have to grow up and realize that you are not you're more similar to the rest of humanity than 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 you think. There's this great meme where
Yeah.
there's this great meme or cartoon where it features a bunch of people at a subway train car, and they all think the same thing. Oh, I'm so esoteric and different, and no one can understand me. And so that is the joke. Um, and I wonder if music can um, can perhaps you know can perhaps direct these people who are still stuck in this I'm so esoteric mentality into something that is more healthy. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that music gets caught up in that sense of esoteric individualism
Mhm.
and that it's latched on to like I like this and this is what makes me
Yeah.
um different. And if you like this too, then we could be the same. I think it's very much caught up in that uh when you're younger, I think. But I relate to that long-term adolescence. I've thought about this a lot. Like my drive to do music is just not similar to what it was when I was young. And when I was young, it was very much an identity for me. And I felt like I've had to deliver on this identity and um ideal for a long time. Like it's almost like I tripped myself into it. I sometimes I'll say when I was 16, I loved to play guitar and write songs. My friends loved to skateboard. No, none of my friends still skateboard. And the part of me maybe hasn't grown up that still has to do this, write songs and um deliver this thing that this is where I've ended up with the skill that I have. And I do like stepping out of that and helping someone like Hannah
Mhm.
use my experiences to do something that she wants to do. Or Brad Canning, I produced some songs for him, and I produced some Trent Severance stuff. And I think it's been like my way of growing up in the artist world, is taking on these other skills and attributes. But yeah, sometimes I feel weighted down by being an artist a little bit, and like I could grow up better if I just let this go. Like, and then, it's a pretty big statement, but it's something that I do think about. At the same time, I don't think I could ever step away from having the idea for a song and pursuing trying to write it down. What I do with it beyond that could change though, it's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I should say that, I'm no exception to the sort of like maladies that affect adolescents in their relationship to music. I mean,
Me
I
too.
would, at my teenage years, I would search out the angriest and angstiest and saddest music and just indulge myself with it. And
Yeah.
so, but I wish to end this conversation, which I've enjoyed greatly, by
Me
asking.
too. Thank you.
I
You're quite a brilliant mind.
Thank
That was
you.
one of my favorite interviews ever.
Thank you. And yeah, I wish to end with this one question, which I've asked Hannah too, before we part ways. But what does music mean to you?
Oh, um, in a solitude and personal way, it's a space I can go to and be alone, if that makes sense, like, and soothe myself. So it's very self-soothing for me
Mhm.
on a personal level. So my family all plays music, but I still want to go in my room and play music alone. Like that is a safe place for me. And I love to listen to musical, and whether I'm going for a run and just putting my Spotify playlist on, and um it just like can transform me. So music for me would be transformative, inspiring, escape. Uh Music from a community standpoint is connection, togetherness, and that kind of opposite of the esoteric
Mhm.
solo thing that music can do. So to me, it's two totally different things um, that can be used for self-healing alone or together or connection. Um, but I do view it in two different ways. Uh, and it's also something that can be anything that I want to create. So it's a total adventure. So those are my three answers to what music is.
Well, they're all very lovely. So with that, on that note, thank you very much, Dana Manning, for being on this program. Thank you for your great thoughts on music and life and the music business and everything in between. And I hope you enjoy Stratford. I see
Thank
that it's a
you.
very lovely day out, and I hope you take care of yourself.
I hope you get to go back to Stratford someday.
Oh, I look forward to it. Thank you.